But science, by definition, allows for more than one opinion. Otherwise, you merely have the will of one man, which is the basis of cult.
If it's not in frame, it doesn't exist.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore!
I'm funny how? Are you funny like I'm a clown, an illusion?
Where you been?
Drunk.
Wendy, darling, light of my life.
What is your one purpose in life?
To explode, of course.
I like death with sex. How about you, Casey? You like sex with death?
Yeah, so fuck off and die.
Let's talk about some gumbo, baby.
Yeah, that's what they call me.
That's what I'm excited about. I want to ask, what's your gumbo, Rue? What's your sweet secret recipe?
I can't say I've ever made gumbo, though. I would.
You never made gumbo?
No, though I would, but I just my family. That's one of the things. You know how fucking picky they are. Like anything that I bust out some more Cajun seasonings. Like I've made some like fucking Cajun like shrimp and grits and shit. They were good. They were pretty damn good in my opinion. But nobody in my family eats that shit. So that's something I got to make for myself. But you know what? Especially, and my wife hates sausages too, like in her food. So, but
I mean,
I'm going to make gumbo now and tell her.
Chick-fil-A bun.
I know. I'm going to tell her now. I'm going to make gumbo this next week. And I'm going to tell her if she doesn't eat it, then she's racist. So
That's what you need to do with your kids. You need to you need to hold them accountable by telling them, if you don't do this, you hate black people.
I know.
But
I know I made rice for dinner tonight, and I'm just like, how dare you? Anyway.
Rice was too spicy for your children?
No, they just suck. Everyone sucks at eating anything. This is a Cult of Cinema Knowledge podcast. You might be wondering, why are you guys talking about gumbo over there? That's Jordan, right? Mr. Gumbo.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
We're,
oh, dude, I love. Oh man, I like peeling my shrimp. I like cooking my shrimp. I like a hot boil. Dude.
I suspect.
It's good food. Good eating.
Just so for the warning for the folks at home and for you, Jordan, as I'm sure you know, suspect there's going to be a lot of leeways and perhaps a shorter episode this week. We might end up talking about recipes and gumbos for like 20 minutes in order to just kind of. I feel like we're going to get off track.
We don't have to pad the time. We don't have a producer or anything. We got to chat about it.
Yeah.
I'm happy that we like rounded off, queer cinema month. I'm glad we rounded it off with something that deals with the BIPOC community and the larger African diaspora. It's cool to have this, and it's cool to be introduced to Marlon Riggs. I've never really knew who this was.
Yeah.
And they're like a prominent director, and it's actually kind of fun to talk about a movie that's really on the low budget end, in the sense that it's made through the community, and it's cool to see it made with
it does. It feels like
the technology readily available at the time.
It does, yeah. It feels like that. It does feel like something that you would see on public access, but in a good way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It does. It feels like
in the best
funds were raised.
It feels
and people.
It feels like educational, right?
For sure.
And they were the funds were raised, and that's what's cool. It's he'd get funds through the arts and stuff.
I'm very, very torn about this movie for completely different reasons, and we'll get into the reasons why. But obviously, the movie we watched is Black Is, Black Ain't documentary, 94, I believe.
Yes, right. I mean, it was
Marlon
made
Riggs,
through. It was
right?
made through the late.
So,
it was made through. I think it was made through 89 to 94 or something or at least 90.
But
at least
I know
90 to
he was
94.
fairly prominent documentary filmmaker. He'd made other documentaries, and I really like the style of this.
Right.
I think that, and he seems like a artistic and thoughtful man that I enjoyed listening to and liked his style. So it made me want to go back and see his perspective on more of his documentaries. Because when I was trying to find this documentary, I found some of his others, but not this one.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'll have to put a pin in that. You know what I mean? Because this looks interesting.
He has a Criterion collection also. So that's That's another place to find
But
it.
was this on the fucking
where did you
Criterion? Okay, so
where did you find this? I used Canopy, which is like a local library streaming service.
It sucks because I got Canopy to work. I've told you in the past that I couldn't get it to work because it wouldn't work with my library card for some reason. Like, it just wouldn't load. But it did work now that I'm in school. It worked with my student information for that. However, this movie was region locked, and even though I have a VPN, since it's attached to the school, I can't. Like, the institute wouldn't let me watch it, which is annoying that it even does that. It's like, come on. But
Canopy's shoddy. I couldn't even use on my account. I couldn't put Victoria's library card in.
Oh, okay.
So
it's still. I'm sure your viewing experience was fucking better than mine because I was pissed. So, this movie, I was like, it won the podcast, which I was surprised by. Because you made me put it on last minute, and I never even heard of it. Oh, yeah. She gonna get on it?
Sorry.
Come tell her what she says.
No.
Get her in.
Yes, we're recording. Yeah, sorry. We're in the middle. Victoria just came out of the room, and I'm like, let me see real quick if this is an emergency. Are you...
Oh, your dog is patient zero?
Yeah. No, yeah. It's fine. No.
Yeah,
You're fine. You can keep her out here. No, Beef, keep her out here.
Yeah, keep her
She's
out.
fine.
She could be part of
Pele
it.
can be out here.
And
No, it's
will
fine.
never cut
She'll stop
anything out of
breathing in a minute.
this. So.
I will. I know. Yeah, dude. No. Levi never stops recording. That's our pact. Is we never stop recording. No matter what gets on this pod, we never stop recording.
I say I'm going to cut it,
end
but
my
I don't.
dog's life to send her to stop her breathing. Just choke her out.
She could come.
Pele. She's gonna what she's gonna do is a bird's gonna fly by the window and you will see a dog leap through a plate glass window to her.
If it wasn't like last week,
already.
dude, when those giant rats were coming from the trees or whatever.
Yeah, I know. That's what she goes for. She attacks them. You should see her like windowsill is like scratched up because her nails get on everything,
sure.
and yeah. So we're like, if you leave all this, if you leave all that in,
gonna leave it.
You guys, I
already
really
said
are.
I'm padding for time because
no.
This is the quality
what
content that the people come for.
What if this was people don't know that this was actually in the script for this
Yeah,
episode.
we wrote it.
Is that we were like cause a distraction so we can But I want to get us back on track.
I watched.
What were you
I was saying I found this movie. I was surprised that it won. I knew nothing about it, and I honestly did not want to watch it. If I'm being completely honest, I had no desire to watch it for one reason and one reason only. I didn't want to watch a documentary, and I'll get into the why I didn't want to watch a documentary because if you'll remember, go back to documentary month. I love documentaries, but from like as a film club, it's so much harder to analyze the content of a documentary because it is real life. You basically end up analyzing how the documentary was made, and then everything else is the subject of the documentary, which is real. You can't talk about character development, which is fine. I love it, but it makes it hard to talk about for me, especially when it's a documentary about what it's like to be a black person and black culture, which obviously you may not know if you don't watch the YouTube videos. You might think that we're a couple black dudes, but we're not. We're very fucking white.
Yeah, sure.
And so
I love that.
I feel
there you go. There's a
unqualified.
segue into
unqualified
the documentary,
to speak
though.
about the content of this documentary for the most part. I got some things to say, but
of course, right? Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're both trying to explain the black life, explain the black experience.
Someone
But
needs
I
me
think
to explain it for him, right?
I know, right? Exactly. But you knocked, or you like you're dancing around something that was brought up in this documentary, and I think that's the best way to talk about a documentary is like it's the themes that they bring up. It's like I don't know. I do watch documentaries because if you remember when we did documentary month, I would call them characters often, because it's like you are like I mean,
in
they
a way,
clearly
it's like
are like
performance,
real life human beings.
What I mean, at a certain point,
But
too.
it is. Right, of course. Like and they're talking about their experiences, and I think something that's interesting in this documentary is this documentary, like that of a Gumbo, like that, because that's clearly the thematic backdrop of this whole documentary is him talking about his mother's cooking and the fact that how she makes a gumbo and how like Creole cooking is something that's really important in his life, and how Creole is kind of like this like co-opted from kind of a a whole bunch of different cultures, but like definitely
It really is
definitively
like
black.
the best
So
food too. I fucking love
and it-
Cajun food
it's
so much.
yeah.
It's like-
It's
the
it's
best.
amazing. Yeah, it's
I want to
really
I want
tasty.
to
And
travel
so-
down to like Louisiana for
my
the
God.
cuisine,
Dude, I'm so-
and the culture. I mean, it
yeah,
sounds
like
dope,
Victoria got a. She was in New Orleans, but she was only there for like I can't remember 2 days or something like that. It was for her sister for like her bio sister's wedding, but they she got a little bit of food and stuff, but all that. But I'm like, I want to go. I'm super jealous, and that would have been fun.
We
but
should go. We'll
anyways,
do a
what I'm getting
podcast
at is,
there
like,
one day. We'll go on the podcast.
it's cool
Dime business
because
expense.
we in this documentary they talk about. I mean, yeah, actually, yeah, we could, huh? But they talk about dialect and like
Yeah.
sounding too white
Yeah.
and sounding too black and that whole like and that like what that means. And I thought this documentary I almost wish that they could have gotten deeper into it. It's like it's a tragedy because he passed away before the film was done,
Right.
And so they made this movie kind of they edited it after his passing, so he didn't get to have that control. So I actually want to go back to watch some of his other
to
documentaries that
see
he had full
more
control
like
of.
to see how the end product came out because like you mentioned the editing
Yeah.
and stuff because it's like how this documentary was compiled. We did say educational, but it does feel like something that would like the way that it's paced out. I would feel like I'd see this on like PBS or something like that, and that is like
Right.
the
This
highest
would
thing
play
I
like
think.
in a school.
It's because it's
I feel like,
greatly paced. The editing is so good. Like honestly, like just like the way the whole thing's paced out and like how it cuts in between like the chanting of the Black is Black A and like the songs and like the interpretive dance and in between him and his T-cell count and talking about that like it does a very good like so I was like really impressed with the final product, how it was all played out. So yeah, now I'm interested to see how much of like that process, like go watch one of his earlier movies or like was he involved in the process like as it was filming kind of like I don't know. I'm interested to see what that's all about because I love that. But no. Into the movie, I was fine to watch this movie, but my biggest thing is I could not find it to watch anywhere, right? And for once, my wife was wanting to watch it with me. And that's a rare occasion if you listen to any of these. So I could not find it anywhere that I could watch it with her. So I had to watch it on my computer on like a really terrible like streaming pirate site that was like, it was at like 280p like resolution.
Yeah.
And it had like hard baked massive font, like fucking Spanish subtitles. So it was a hassle to watch it, but I'm glad I was able to because I almost was like, I couldn't find it. I was looking forever last night, and I almost texted you. I'm like, we're skipping this fucking thing this week because I was getting frustrated that I couldn't find it. But I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm really glad because even though I was saying like I was not dreading, but like not looking forward to the podcast discussion about a documentary because I felt like I couldn't add that much to this. It's still like I love documentaries and I thought this was a really great movie to watch, even though the experience of trying to watch it was frustrating initially. But I'm really glad because it's like, even though it's about like intense, like cultural and personal, like struggles of a community that like fucking just knows nothing but struggles. It's like it felt still soft. Like I don't know. Like there's something that it was a very inviting and uplifting.
Definitely.
Even as someone who's not like part of that community at all, like it felt very welcoming, if that makes sense. And that's why I guess also I'm saying it's like educational in that way, where it's just like it, even though it's drops like fuck bombs and stuff like that, it does feel like this was made with like the positive influence. Like, yeah, I would show this to a younger kid. You know what I mean? For sure.
And that was something I also agree with. I definitely think like this should be played in schools.
Mm-hmm.
This is and I think like I personally wish that it was a little bit longer in or not
Too
longer,
big,
but,
too
like,
wide of a
little
net
more
though.
focused
Yeah, it's a
in-
little too wide of a net.
Yeah, exactly. I wish it was a little more focused because they definitely were just like I could tell that they had a lot of footage that wasn't enough to like put into a full documentary, but like they just kind of would like touch on for one moment about like maybe religion or something, something else that
Yeah, it's like very much.
I kind of was like, oh, it'd been nice to get into the nitty gritty of it, which I like. I understand this was just
the thesis
this kind of was like
seems to
a
be
collage
like,
of history,
Yeah.
mixed
Well,
in.
it's very much
with
like, what does it
Marlon Riggs'
mean
life.
to be black? And that's like a huge question. You
Right.
know what I mean? And so it's like,
yeah, of course,
it,
and
it
so
goes like the whole
I love,
spectrum.
It's like very introductive.
Well,
Yeah.
and that was the other thing,
So-
because I do wish it did focus a little bit more, because it was always in there. It was always in there like early on, and especially just because the filmmaker obviously is a gay man that died of AIDS. And so, like, that voice is always there, but it didn't really focus on it until, like, near the end, where it was, like, the actual,
that's
just
what
being,
Victoria
like, Queer
said.
Cinema Month and everything. Like, it didn't really focus
Yeah,
on that.
yeah. She's like, oh no. She's like, this didn't really have much to do with like the focal, point of being.
But I think
queer.
that's
And
the
it's like,
whole
right, of
thing,
course, but
though, right? It's like,
But I mean,
but I wish it
you're
would
gonna
have
tell
been,
me that-
like, a little bit more about that, because it was interesting.
Marlon Riggs was butt ass naked out in the middle of the woods, and he was like,
Yeah.
he literally was like, "You're gonna show this footage. My butt is gonna be in this documentary,
He's
like
not-
over my
he's
dead body.
not
You will take that
wrong,
out."
though, because he did say
Like,
he
I
was
loved
like it was a very like powerful image to me, is what he said, and I'm like
dude, it
100%
was great,
agree.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's got like I don't know, like
Yeah, him being out there, and I actually really liked. It's like it's so funny because I'm struggling with like this. Looks like it's shot on like VHS or like
Yeah.
it looks whatever. It looks like they used digital of the time.
it was
And
shot
then-
on a
and
flip
then
phone,
it's
is what it
been-
looked like to me. On the version I
right,
watched.
right. Well, yeah. No, so that's I think what it is like this was probably filmed on like a TV circuit camera. It's
Yeah.
it was probably shot on digital of the time, which is like, what is that? Like, I call it mini DV because that was what we
It's before
we had
that.
when we were
It might
growing
even
up.
just been, but
it was
it wasn't.
before that
It wasn't
high
straight.
eight or
it wasn't straight videotape either, for sure. So
no,
whatever. Yeah, whatever they.
So it had been
used.
something else, some other like digital reel-to-reel camera that it had that quality to it. But then the version I watched was like probably a Criterion release, I assume, because it was like it looked really crisp and nice, but it kind of had the flatter color to it almost. But I really liked the like editing of all the like of him like superimposed over footage,
Yeah.
and then the overlapping sound. It was like it's so weird because it was so clear. Like it just felt kind of like overwhelming, but like a very clear message through all of it. And like I think when it comes to documentaries, I have like a different expectation. Like I don't ever go into a documentary, probably because I'm not very well versed in documentaries, but I never go into one knowing what to look for exactly. Like I could, or how about this? I'm a lot more forgiving to a documentary if the quality is lower, because I'm
100%.
I'm not holding it to a standard, or I don't have quite like a benchmark.
I almost like a
of documentaries,
documentary when
so-
the quality's less, because then it's just
Yeah.
like, this is a story that I have to tell, and I'm gonna tell it, even if I don't have a
Right.
fucking airy like whatever.
and the it feels more authentic.
It does,
kind of in
'Cause
a
I
way.
mean, like,
it does.
when we did
It feels-
documentaries,
feels more personal.
a much more queer movie was Paris is Burning, was we did documentary month. But it's like
that's a really good.
I
that's a really good.
really liked Paris is Burning, but it had the same style. Like it was very raw, kind of just like on the streets, like just kind of like what we had access to. Counter
home movie-
counterculture
home movie look,
yeah. For sure. And honestly, I'm glad, because we say this every time. Like I want to watch more documentaries, because I do love documentaries. I think they're great, but it's interesting too, because it's like they're
Well, we always
they're
say that.
a lot
It's
of
so hard
times
to get
not
into a
objective
documentary.
truth either, which is weird, but.
Yeah.
But like I want to watch older ones too, because so many documentaries I feel like really exploded in the 2000s when it became easier to film on digital. And so most documentaries you hear about and watch that are like popular and famous are from this century. And so I like going back, because like the 90s was like right on that cusp, but it's like I want to go back and even watch older documentaries, because it's like you really had to fucking go through the trenches, like some of the like 70s ones, you know what I mean? But you feel that here, because this is like the 90s were very transitional for filmmaking, and so it's like you feel that in this movie, as well as like Paris is Burning, which is also 90s, right? So which I liked.
Dude, that's crazy. You're actually tripping me out, because it's like how did they back in the day, like when they made a documentary, if they weren't able to shoot clean audio at all, I wonder what they did. Would they ADR like
I don't
a
know.
documentary?
I don't know.
You know what I mean? I wonder. That's interesting.
I
Yeah,
feel
it'd
like
be
they
kind of fun
probably
to look
used
into.
trash audio if they had it, and if they didn't have it, then
maybe
they didn't
cleaned
use
it
it
up somehow.
Yeah,
But
I don't know.
yeah, right. Or voiceover. I guess a lot of voiceover because
That is true.
This movie did that. Or
A lot of
It
voiceover,
would.
yeah.
It would do voiceover. Like if
Music.
they just had like a lot of footage of like L.A. after the riots
Yeah.
and stuff. It's like it definitely. And that's what I loved about this movie. It is such a time capsule of the early '90s. Like it totally
Yeah, it
like
really is.
you know they would get out into the streets a lot, but he was with his like family a lot too, and so it was cool to see like the South, like dude, my favorite like person in this, the and personality of this, she was a character, is that old woman that had 15 children.
Oh, yeah,
and
dude.
she
And
lived
she's
on a
just
farm
fishing?
and she was raising
Yeah.
pigs. She's fishing, and dude, no. And so as we're watching it, she catches a fish within like 13 seconds. She like fucking casts it, catches the fish because it's like she's a fucking pro. And the cameraman is like, they're like, "Are you gonna keep it?" And I'm like,
She's like,
this
"Yeah."
woman's gonna keep the fish, dude. She like, are you kidding me? That cooler probably has 60 fish in it because
Yeah.
it's like she's gonna keep the fish. She eats the fish. That's like she lives off of the land.
She's
Have
not
you-
down
did you talk
here.
with her
Yeah,
for
she's
5
not
minutes?
down here fishing for the recreation of it. You know what I mean?
No. Like,
Yeah.
you
Oh,
you
yeah,
have
she-
15 kids.
she
and,
was
like,
great. Well, that-
she was great.
that-
I wish we got to know her more too. That was kind of the thing. I'm like, everybody in this, like, they had like a moment to talk. They probably only interviewed them for like an hour and then edited around it. And I'm
Right.
like, it'd have been fun to.
Well, yeah, and that's
Focus on some
what
other
adds
people, but-
so much like flavor to these, and it makes sense. Like you would kind of have to have that because like documentaries that are like this documentary is about a specific culture, and so to like have because it's like obviously it was tons of different peoples from different like parts of that culture. You know what I mean? Because it's like you had them filming like fucking and all the L.A. stuff, like all the Louisiana stuff with his family, and you even had like they even got the fucking I don't know what they call it in that religion, but like the bishop or the priest or whatever the fuck, and they kind of had like every
they had
aspect.
they had a few churches doing it, yeah, which was cool.
But it never felt like this is the archetype of this is the kind of person. It was like, I don't know. It felt very real. I mean, it is a documentary, so it was. You know what I mean? But
I know, right. But there was a genuine authenticity behind it, and I think that's because it didn't focus directly on a narrative, and like it was kind of interesting because it's like, he was like, a gay, struggling with AIDS, but then that didn't become like the focal point, and it like I don't know, it let a lot of voices speak, and that was interesting, and I liked that it was interesting, like talking to those like 3 kids that like skip school and they're gangbanging and they're selling drugs, and it's kind of just like
what's it mean
it's
to be
crazy
a man?
because I'm like
too,
it's
is,
so
like, very much like
it's
what it
so
is with
real,
them,
yes,
you know?
dude. Like
Which
talking
is
about
the
being a man.
conceit too,
And,
like because it's like very much like what it is to me. A black
that's
man
big.
specifically is like kind of like the thesis in the movie, but like they're like, oh, I don't have the responsibility, so I guess I'm a young man, and that's why I think it was most interesting because it's like even though it didn't focus on him being like gay and dying of AIDS necessarily, it was the through line that made the whole thing feel like legacy in the way that he's like reminiscing, like he's accepted his death and he's kind of like thinking back and like about his life and about his culture and about his ancestry, and so you feel that from that perspective, which is like perfect. Like that, I think that's done absolutely perfect. And so like, but like to see, that's why I thought it was like really interesting because I guess it's like even though I'm a white man, but like seeing the conversations about like what masculinity is, and like especially in black culture where it's just like historically black men have to be like more masculine and powerful, projecting, and it's like I loved that conversation. So I wish it was kind of more about that because that's kind of what I thought it was going to be about a little bit, and it does become about that a bit. You know what I mean? It talks about that quite a bit. That it's just like, what does it mean? It's like be feminine because it's like the overall consensus. I feel like at the end is, be your culture, but don't put yourself in a box either. You know what I mean? It's like know who you are and know your roots, but also like don't let anyone tell you, that's not black, or that's too white, or whatever. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like you, be an individual, but know your past and all that. And so it's like, but all the stuff about like the toxic masculinity idea of it, like I really loved the dancers that they got, like the one dancer guy specifically, when they have him doing all the interpretive dance.
Sick, yeah.
He has, and also such control of his body, dude. It always freaks me out seeing it, like
yeah.
a really fit dude dance like that. Because it's just so impressive, where it's just like every muscle is like a fucking transformer, dude. Really good, but it's like I don't know. It did. I felt the dream-like
there's so many
state
good
of
points.
it that it seeped into me in a way.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes, it's very poetic. I mean, I think that's a big through line also. Is like there's poetry in pretty much everything that exists. The the mundane life that you can live. It's like it can be poetic, but then there's a lot of like, power in that poetry. And then, like you're saying, connecting to your roots, and that was one quote that really stuck out to me. Is like when they're talking about like wearing their traditional cloth and their clothes, and she's like, but I can put on a pair of jeans and I can still, I'm still black, and like that is, it's such a like, God, dude, it's like Western culture has just fucking, it's crazy, man. We've done a good number on on many cultures, pretty much every culture, and it's this weird kind of thing where it's like we're a melting pot, but then that means like you have to abandon your roots,
Yeah.
and then trying to find your roots even in your community, there is infighting, there's gatekeeping, if you will, and it's kind of interesting that they talked about that in this a little bit, between different religions mainly. That was like the biggest emphasis, is like people in the 90s, contemporary, for that time, during this movie, they were like, I'm leaving different churches because they're churches who just don't take queer people. Don't, if you you can't be gay or trans or, have a different ideology like that. Like even in the patriarchy, you can't go against that,
Right.
if you want any like equity or equality or any kind of like feminism. And so it's like interesting, like when they found that one church with the dude in like the red like, garb, and they were singing and stuff. And I was like, oh, that's cool. That's like,
So it's
I'm
like
glad
finding
that, like,
this community where
finding their
you belong,
community and their religion. Yeah. And like, making
That'd be nice.
that work, because that's the one thing. It's like, if anyone's ever listened to us before, religion's like it's a tough thing for me to like wrap my head around.
Same.
Like religion is like, there's there's so much bad that's happened, but like also that community and that the safety that they talked about that comes from religion, and just historically how it's been a community for Black people, kind of like a safe haven essentially. And so it's kind of weird to see that kind of get dismantled. But man, I don't know, his like Marlon Riggs, when he's laying down and he's talking about how like he's tired, but he's like, but I'll get up, and I know that like my body's just fighting me, and he's like, I haven't, I've been sick before.
When
and I'll
he's
keep
singing
doing
all
it.
the songs.
That was
the best.
Dude, he's singing those songs, and it goes to like unintelligible, and it's just got question marks, and he's just
they're like, what?
doing it.
He's
It's
like, and then here's the jazz
do
bit.
that.
You know what I mean? Like he's kind of going through like
yeah, and he's just like
musically. I
He's
wish you'd
riffing.
seen, because it's interesting, and maybe we'll talk about it in a bonus episode one day or something like that. But I recently had watched Sinners, which is very much about like how music is like part of culture, and specifically like the roots of Black culture. And so I was thinking, because that movie's still kind of fresh in my mind, and so when he was talking about on his fucking deathbed, and he's like explaining all the different types of music that is like been created by Black culture to like express different types of emotions and things like that. He's like talking about hip hop, he's talking about blues, he's talking about jazz and all that. And he's like singing it, and then it becomes unintelligible. Just he's kind of having fun with it. He seems like a great guy to be around, which is a shame.
Dude, I know, really though, man. Like his positivity is like infectious. It's fucking crazy.
But
like,
seeing that connection with that music, it's like I almost, that was a chunk of the movie I almost wish was like, I want to watch a documentary about that too. And so I think with this movie, they kept being so many things where I'm like, ooh, that's interesting, but it's just like they just like did the surface. And
Yeah, and I knew this movie's only like an hour and a half, so I was like, we don't.
Right.
I'm like, it's not gonna get there, you know. Like I knew everything it was doing, I was like, we're just for a
I
moment.
guess
we're,
that's
like,
good though, where it
gonna
leaves
talk
you
about this
wanting
and-
more,
Yeah.
right? You know what I mean? It leaves you like wanting to discover. Like I feel like that's good to have that at least mentality where it's just like, oh, I'm learning more things, and also like digging into like people's perspective, and like even also like things were much different 30 years ago. You know, this is 30 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And so
totally,
like
yeah.
a different culture, but also a different time in a different time period. Like it's always fascinating to see that capsule. And so it's just like, we're obviously not going to get any more of that, you know, and like, unless you get like a fucking 10-hour Ken Burns documentary. I mean, he did do like a jazz documentary, which I watched part of and it was great, but it's like,
Right. Yeah.
you're not going to get that now, like with the retrospective. So it's like, you kind of got to cherish what this was for what it was. Like you said earlier, where it's just like a snip of the time and the place, but like, because like all the people in that, or if they're still alive, or you know, older than, I mean, we were tiny children when this came out, or when this was filmed, at least, too. You know,
Right. I was actually thinking that a lot because it's like they film inside a lot of classrooms during this movie, and like I wanted to know like where like. God, I'm trying to remember. There was like a conversation with some of the kids, and they were asking some of the funniest ass questions and like talking about their hair and stuff. And I'm like, oh man, I wonder where they are now. Like, I wonder if they like remember doing this documentary, you know, like, or if it's one of those things where like their parents are like, oh, you were in this documentary back in the night, back when you were in grade school, and they're kind of like, oh shit, okay,
yeah.
like, you know, because it's like, you know,
I
because it's not.
vaguely remember
That's the one
that
thing
being
I
a
think.
thing, you know.
Yeah, right. And I think that's interesting to our personal relationship with documentaries is that they do kind of like they kind of get stuck in their time. And like you know, there are people who advocate for documentaries and like who preserve documentaries and stuff, obviously. And so it's like I think they're harder though because they rarely ever produce a celebrity, and that's something that like, you know, admittedly, we kind of follow that trend Hollywood a little bit more.
And most of the
you know,
big famous
so
documentaries are sort of like infamous in the way that it's just like they maybe don't tell the whole story, or because that's the thing about documentaries too. They can very much, like any media, be very biased, but it's presented as facts. So it's like it's refreshing to see this one. You know, like I mean, a lot of documentaries are like this where they are just matter of factly. But it's based very much on the people who are making it. You know what I mean? It's like if you wanted to make a documentary that was very specifically tweaked something about something, it's like, but those are all the big ones. A lot of the big ones, it's like you hear there's like a controversy. Even that one I was telling you about that I watched the other day, there's something wrong with that, Diane. Like there was some controversy to that too. You know, a couple different things. You know what I mean? So it's like that's like what gets remembered the most. Unfortunately, it's never like, oh, that was impactful because it was interesting, or those people, like it's so much more often like, oh, it exposed something horrible and then maybe wasn't truthful or something. And so it's like I like this style of documentary where it really just is like there's no agenda really other than it is to just kind of like share a thing, and like I said, where it's him more reminiscing on his life experience a bit, you know what I mean, growing up. And like and like all that shit, you hear interesting shit because it's like what you're saying about like black hair and like all that shit about the Creole culture in the early 1900s, where it's like they would have them run a comb through their hair to see if they were invited into the party.
I know,
and I'm like,
that's
such
a crazy little
specific thing
factoid.
That like, it's just like a crazy specific thing that is just like, unless you were around that, you would have no idea. So it's just like. Or like passed along that information, which is crazy. But have you?
I know, yeah. It's that's what I love about documentaries. Obviously, this is the thing. Like, get on our like, you know, our just I don't know to tell the kids, you know, like documentaries are cool because they do teach you something, and that's the thing. And even for how bad they are, like Nanook of the North is like the one that I always like. That's because that's like the first documentary like ever made, and it's a complete farce. Like. Not a single thing in it is authentic. Not like the clothing, the actions, the dialogue. Nothing about it. It's all written and it's all acted, and like all the indigenous people in it are laughing at them behind their backs because they're like, "This isn't what we do." Like you know, and so And something like even learning that kind of helps you to like, like watch like a documentary with like, a little hesitancy almost, and like I think that even watching like this where this is just like life, you can kind of see where what they're trying to do. Like, I feel like there was a moment where they tried to pit religions against each other, but then it like kind of just leaves it up for you to go kind of figure it out yourself. And I do like that,
which is nice because even the documentaries that are like twisted, like you say too, it's like even to be able to recognize that, know that requires a certain amount of critical thinking, and it's still a product of its time, and there's still that value in it,
right?
Knowing what it is and not just taking everything at face value. So it's nice when it's presented in a way that feels like it's just like, here it is. Like, that's what feels so earnest about this, is it's just like, here it is. Like, it's kind of 90 minutes of like word vomit of like just like fucking what every different perspective is of like black culture, where it's like you could say it's like not focused, like, because it's, as much as it could be, but it is refreshing in a way. Like, I wish I had those other elements, but it is nice to just kind of just unabashedly just, here it is, you know what I mean? Because so often
again, it's like a gumbo, like I said, like it's just kind of everything.
The metaphor of the
pot.
gumbo running
like
through is
right.
perfect. It is.
It's very strong. Yeah, it's like that's a big takeaway. For me. I mean,
When they thought that, when they like wrote that, he's like, dude, it's like a gumbo, even though I'm sure I don't remember. I'm sure he heard it from like his grandmother or something like that, but.
Right. Well, I mean, they've just been making gumbo. I'm sure that's been a thing where it's like you just all add it in a pot and everyone can eat. Like,
then you pick out all the sausage and pick out all the peppers, and and it's just broth now or whatever. So anyway, this movie was fun. I enjoyed it. I do want to go back and watch some more of his other ones now, so I'm gonna have to add them to my list because I wanted more of him in it too, because it's like there's a fair amount, but it's just like. I liked his voice, and I just liked his cadence. Like, he seemed like such a sweet man, too. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of a shame. So I want to watch more of his stuff, especially if it's like the similar style. And I also want to compare the things I liked about this, the end product with the editing and everything, and the sound design, like you say, is simple, but it's powerful. It's doing a lot. You know what I mean?
Definitely. Yeah. There's some interesting parts with like, especially a lot of like. The heavier artistic and poetic themes like that they would run through, where it's like getting like, and we didn't even really, it's great that they got, Angela Davis was, did an interview, and Bell Hooks. It's like, it's really cool that they, got these like,
Cornel West is using
prominent
one scene. Which I
some
I just
prominent
have to say
black
that
creators.
seeing him, I've only seen Cornel West as like an old man, like as he is now. So seeing him kind of younger in this was cool, but also I'm always obsessed with that guy's gap tooth. I fucking love it so much. He's got the best gap tooth. Well, you know how I am with teeth. Anyway.
Oh yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, you're a freak for teeth.
I bet you have tons of information about all the money this made, right?
Dude, just every dollar and dime. Oh man. Yeah, I really couldn't find a solid answer for you.
I literally almost couldn't watch this movie, so I'm sure.
So
it was there's not a wealth of information about like.
He got a the only thing I could find is he got a $5,000 grant to make it, and
it's nothing.
So I'm sure whoever. So I know literally, and I'm sure whoever helped. Like I'm guessing this probably cost like $10,000 total.
Yeah,
because a lot of it was like footage that he shot himself, clearly like that's what he did. He had a very small crew that would do this, and he would do a lot of stuff that's just like at family gatherings and stuff, and then like a lot of it is like it's not like strict documentary where they're like, okay, because clearly there's no like strong narrative, so they just like are it's just found footage basically in family home videos and stuff.
It's like all the money goes to the crew, which probably a lot of them donated their time, probably.
Right, exactly.
The actual equipment, like rentals or whatever, that was probably where, and then like the editing and process is probably where it all went. But it's like,
and
that's nothing.
And it's like
$10,000, $20,000 is nothing.
Yeah.
Like
the people who are
made our
in
movie
it,
for
like the
$5,000,
prominent-
and it's like it was literally like food, just feeding people on the day of. You know what I mean? It's like it goes so fast.
Right. Yeah, it really does. Yeah, and so that's the thing. I'm like, there's probably a lot more grants, and it did win. It won an award in Sundance also, so it got recognition there. And then I would I'd imagine it was a lot of like selfless time from everybody involved.
Yeah.
Doing the interviews and stuff. I'm sure they volunteered.
Oh
their
sure.
time, 'cause I don't think you
I'm
get-
not sure.
I think that's.
I'm
I
sure
think
they're
that's the
not
part.
paying anyone. That's like.
Well, and that's kind of the frustrating thing is like if you knew that like a lot of the true crime documentaries and shit, a lot of those they pay people like thousands and thousands of dollars to be in them. Like to get an interview with like the family member of somebody who killed somebody, they'll give them like $100,000.
Oh
or
yeah, they
something.
give them
It's
a boatload
crazy
sometimes.
to like and then there's it's just like
And I
just
think
interesting.
that's
It's
kind
like-
of the biggest takeaway because all of that leads to like what I'm saying, where it's just like they say, and I know it's like a popular term, it's like truth to power. Like this movie feels very true, very earnest, very honest, sometimes raw, like so for it, you know what I mean? But also welcoming, like I said, which is why I'm gonna remember it because I really, even though I like feel like I can't. Like I'm not qualified to speak on like a lot of the content of it specifically. Like obviously I'm just like learning from an outside perspective. But I was frustrated going into it just because of like having to get around it. It's like I'm really, really glad I watched this. And it's like gonna be one that, I think about, put a little smile on my face,
Yeah.
And I'm gonna
definitely.
make some gumbo and I'm gonna go, huh. This is like it's like the
Yeah.
old melting pot here.
delicious.
And then my wife is gonna say, no, I want a peanut butter sandwich.
No.
Like
I know. Yeah, literally.
anyway, I got a few Reddits if you're ready for those. If you
am.
got it in you. Superbite says, I should watch more documentaries. I thought this was amazing. The wide variety of interviews all felt like heartfelt conversations. I was fascinated seeing B-roll of the past, and the amount of topics they covered was extensive. I'm a sucker for anything with dance in it and appreciated the artist's direction of capturing those shots. Marion's story could have easily been its own film, but the way they edited everything together was beautifully done. Yeah, couldn't agree. And the dancing,
totally
the
agree.
dancing and
Yeah.
the editing, and like the way that all was,
Dude.
that was so 90s, but like in the best, like it was so effective. It was so good.
and there's definitely a nostalgia. Like interviewing those kids, there's like such a look, to them, and it like I just was like, oh, this is it's cool, it's crazy.
Competitive Bat 5831 says, two white guys making a podcast about a documentary about being black. Interesting. I'm another white guy, so there's a good chance I have no idea what I'm talking about and will make big errors. I like the use of gumbo as a metaphor for being black, with all the different aspects of each being needed to represent the whole. I also think it's bold for them to not only tackle homosexuality in 1994, but to discuss its relationship to black identity as well. That topic feels like something that is still a struggle for many people 30 years later. I can only imagine how difficult the topic it was when being LGBT wasn't accepted in the mainstream / white America, let alone its complicated history with black culture. The same can be said for people being accused of not being, quote, black enough, or as Ice Cube said, and Oreo, I wonder how much his opinion has changed. I also loved the historical montages and learning a little more about the history of black culture in the South, especially the Don't Call Me Black exchange and the woman who said that she recognized an accent from her childhood that a man from Africa had used. Also, the topic of not being black enough or too black reminds me of American Fiction, and which seems like a contrast between the protagonist being not black enough through their presentations and attitudes, but their fictional counterpart leaning so far the opposite way to being too black as an almost stereotypical character, only for American culture to eat it up as an authentic black experience. Thank you. That was a good comment.
Great,
Appreciate that. And American Fiction was good. I quite enjoyed that movie.
American Fiction's great, dude.
Is that
If you want American Fiction like times like 1,000, like kicked up a notch, you should watch Bamboozled. Spike Lee's Bamboozled.
Oh yeah, I mean Spike Lee. That makes
That's-
sense.
that's like-
I've never.
Right.
We've talked about it a little bit in the past. And I've never watched Bamboozled. I want to though. I want to watch more Spike
Right.
Lee in general, because he's so hit or miss for me. Like some of his stuff is so good, and then some of his stuff is so bad. So I'm cautiously optimistic for. I've been seeing the trailers more and more for his remake of High and Low, which we talked about when we watched High and Low a few months back.
Right.
But it looks way different. But it looks. I'm interested.
I could see him doing. I could see him doing.
I heard it's good.
Good with that.
He doing like modernizing it enough,
I know-
changing it
oh.
enough. But Old Boy was such fucking hot trash.
We can't. Like I can't speak of. It's like one of those things where it's like, yeah, he does that. Where Spike Lee makes like his like the most personal film ever made, like one of the most like wonderful films, and then he does Old Boy. He didn't even want to do it, and it's like, why, buddy? Why'd you do that?
I don't know.
But anyways, yeah. So I've been High and Low. I feel like he does. I feel like he's
highest
carrying a
highest to
little bit more.
lowest, dude. Yeah, and it's got
Yeah.
Denzel and everything. It looks really good, and this made me want to watch because obviously every month we watch movies, and it makes me want to watch like a specific type of movie. So obviously in the future we're gonna have to do more like black movies, like more like black culture, like black filmmakers specifically. I'd like to get in that a little bit more too.
I mean, we're two white guys, but like that's. I don't.
Well,
what,
we eat it
I don't
up.
want to just
I
watch.
eat it. I like everything.
I don't
you
know,
what I
like-
mean? yeah, I don't. Yeah, just because we're two
course,
white
of
guys, I don't
course,
want to be
but-
like I only like white
but, yeah.
movies.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're only gonna watch Hacksaw Ridge.
That's what Jordan was saying before the podcast. He's like, you're making me watch all these
Yeah.
black documentaries.
Oh my
I'm
God,
just-
I'm
I
the
know,
one who
I
picked
know, I'm
this.
kidding.
Well, yeah, Victoria was the one that told me about it, and I was like,
Oh yeah, that was obvious.
Put it on the pod.
That was obvious. All right, I got one more. So, Clones of People 2 says, first watch, I'd never heard of this, and I did not have much expectations going into this. I found it interesting how this didn't feel like a queer film, but 100% was a pride film. Great line. Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah, that's perfect.
Great
Yeah,
line.
exactly.
I know. You're crushing it, dude. He goes on to say, I was pleasantly surprised at how well made and engaging this was. The structure of the film had a great flow, and it stitched together many aspects of black identity in a thoughtful and enlightening way. The film balanced historical footage, interview, and more artistic segments very easily, and I find that in documentary, this can be hard to achieve as it can ruin the pace and ultimately the message of the film. As for the message, as a straight white Irish guy, there is really not a lot I feel like I can add here. The film did a wonderful job of informing me of something I knew little about, but also in a way that made me reflect and empathize. I feel we all can learn something from this, especially in how identity defines us and just how loaded the words we use to identify ourselves and our cultures can be. Overall, this was a pleasant surprise and one that has given me a lot of food for thought. I would love to see a Black Film Month here sometime. Great comment, man, as always.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that comment about pride is great. And then also, yeah, it really does, because it does make you reflect, because it actually made me kind of sad reflecting on my own identity and culture, just because it's like I have so little.
Right, of course. Like,
You know.
our patriot, our like the freaking patriarch that we live in.
Well,
and,
even
yeah,
even
everything.
so,
It's
it's just like
yeah.
your family and my family, like we're similar in a lot of ways, where it's just like I barely know my parents, let alone my grandparents. Like I do not know
Sure.
where I'm from. I do not, like, nobody instilled any values on me. I was basically raised by a single mom
individualism
that has no, like,
Yeah.
it's like I was raised by
Yeah.
TV, you know what I mean? So it's, so watching this and, like, seeing all the complexity of it, but, like, the family and the surrounding of the culture, it did make me, like, yearn for it. Because it's like, I've been in the past, like, people who are in the shitty, quote unquote, shitty white culture have mistaken me as one of their tribe just because I'm also white or a man, and usually said some offhanded, really racist shit to me or like really sexist shit to me.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, what makes
buddy.
you think that I'm like part of that? I don't know. And so it did get me reflecting on like my identity and like who I am and like what I feel is the meaning of culture too. So it's just like, even as like a white dude, it's like, that still has a lot of value other than just like seeing an outside perspective and stuff like that too. I think it was extremely well done in that respect. So, yeah, thanks for those comments, guys. Those were all
said.
those are all
Thank you,
thoughtful
guys.
comments. So I really appreciate that. I have nothing else to say though. I mean, check it out for yourself. I guarantee you,
definitely.
if you're listening to this and you haven't seen it, give it a watch because like this is one that I'm actually surprised won the poll. I'm surprised we got more than like one comment, just because this doesn't seem like I'd never heard of this before 2 days ago. You know what I mean? And now I'm glad I have, and I'm glad I've watched it, and that's another reason why I love this fucking film club. It's because I'm watching shit I normally wouldn't even be on my radar, and I'm better for it. And so, if you haven't watched it, go watch it. You really should. Everyone should check it out.
Yeah,
You know
there's
what I mean?
yeah. The
If
time
you
is
can,
now.
if you can find it, if you can get
if
a
you
Canopy,
listen to this
like-
podcast, I know, really, yeah. If you can connect on Canopy, or I bet you it's on Criterion. But if you've made it this far to the podcast and you haven't watched the movie yet, do yourself the favor, go watch it. It's great.
Yeah, we're talking to you, Cindy.
And thank you for listening. I know,
the only
yeah.
one, probably.
But well, she doesn't know how to work a computer, so
That's true.
you'll have to.
I keep telling her I'm going to help her with the Plex,
When
and I forget.
when you visit. Yeah, you need to, yeah. But I appreciate it. Thank you guys.
Yeah.
If you want to support us more, Patreon's a great place to go. And then honestly, going to YouTube and going to Reddit, being part of that community,
just
that's
come-
great. You can vote for the movies
That's
on YouTube.
my
You can vote
culture,
for the
man.
Movies on Reddit.
That's my community. Is come talk to us about movies.
Yeah.
Come vote. Pick what movies we watch. Like, let's just talk about movies and pick movies. I don't know. Normally we go. It's always weird, but we always base on whatever the Wednesdays it's going to be. The Tuesday or Wednesday. So this will probably be the last movie that we do for Queer Cinema Month, and we're going to go into whatever next genre. Don't know what it is yet, so we'll probably talk about that. So keep your eyes peeled. Maybe we will do one. I don't fucking know. Keep your eyes peeled for a poll. Come let us know. And if you have a genre movie that you want to, or like a category of movie that you want to see done, just come throw it up on the Reddit. I see everything. So I see all the posts from years ago, too, that pop up sporadically. So
I can see
I
everything.
see them all. All right. Goodbye now.
All right. You guys have a good night.